Good afternoon and welcome to Donsö Missionskyrka. My name is Pelle Marklund and I am one of the pastors in this church. And we are really glad to have you all here. Donsö is a place that through centuries has been characterized by shipping and by a spirit of initiative. People from Donsö are not afraid to roll up their sleeves, run large projects, and come up with new inventions. The people of this island has also through years carried a strong commitment to their Christian faith and to the Christian church. Olof Eriksson is the name of the man who founded this church. He had the same profession as some of the first Christians who walked with Jesus for 3 years, 2,000 years ago. He was a fisherman. A stormy night in September 1874, Olof Eriksson and his crew were out at sea. A great wave threw 2 men overboard. The ballast shifted and the boat was leaning heavily on one side. For a long time, the crew fought to get the 2 men out of the water. But they could only rescue one of them. Olof Eriksson hurried under the deck and started to put the ballast back in place. He was overcome by grief. He had just seen his own brother drown in the waves of the roaring storm. And he was worried that the storm might claim all of their lives. He fell to his knees, and in utter despair, he called out to God. God, if you do exist, and if you have the power to save our lives, I bring us ashore. I will dedicate the rest of my life to serve you. By the grace of God and good seamanship, they made it ashore. For 1 year, Olof pondered over how he could use his life to serve God. In agony, he went to the priest on the neighboring island. The priest read to him a verse from the Bible. Jesus said, "Come to me who are weary and heavy laden, and I shall give you rest." Through this scripture, Olof met God, and it changed his life. He started to read the Bible in his home. He read out loud, and people come to listen to him. This is how this church started to grow. In 1974, 100 years after the dramatic event at sea, this church building was built. from our congregation, from this church, Donsö Missionskyrka, welcome. May God bless each and every one of you. Welcome. And now I say welcome to Carl Fager, the host of this event. Welcome.
Welcome to the Commercial Meet 2017. Hope you enjoyed everything so far. The headline for today is Entrepreneurship, Sustainable Shipping, Vision and Challenges. I think extremely important subjects in a rapidly changing society. And to our help, we have three distinguished guests that will help us and share their knowledge and discuss these subjects. So welcome on stage to Mika Antonen, Kimmo Rakamo, and Anders Malm. A big hand. And the setup for this meet is that we will give these three gentlemen 20 minutes each to have a speech, and then they will gather together for a panel debate for around 30 minutes. So we will round up here around 4 o'clock. So, and first up is Mika Antonen, founder, principal shareholder, and chairman of ST1. Welcome, Mika.
Thank you.
I just will. So, Mika, the stage is yours.
All right, and looks like the microphone is working as well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. It was an honor to be invited here, and great honor to be this holy place. And the words what we just heard to start this meeting were touching quite deeply. So it's a little bit difficult to start to talk about my items, which are much more linked to our daily life. I was asked to talk about entrepreneurship, but everyone who is entrepreneur knows that entrepreneurs very seldom do what they are asked to do. So that's the nature of entrepreneurship. And I will try to be very quick what comes to my own career and things what we are doing as a company. But a couple of words I would like to say about it. ST1 has been established roughly 20 years ago. I was leaving a company called Neste 1996, and after that we started in trading business. We quite quickly entered to the retailing business and then various others. Nowadays, we do have in our home market area, which we call Norway, Sweden, Finland, 1,400 gasoline stations. We are the largest retailer on that region. We do have one refinery here in Sweden. We have many other activities around the region. But it's not our main business. It's our main contributor to our main activity, and our main activity, our vision, our mission is to be CO2 aware energy producer and seller. So when I have bought many Shell companies, Exxon companies, Statoil companies during my careers, I have always many times explained this story to the people who are coming from oil industry, and I have seen in their eyes the look that what is this guy talking? We are oil company, we are selling oil products, we are doing oil business, but I have practiced over 20 years, and I think nowadays my message is already clear that these guys who are dealing with oil business, they are making a story possible, and those ones who are on renewable business, they are executing our mission, our vision. In short, our renewable business is, we have made some decisions. How do we do that? On electricity side, we have concentrating on wind. We have a joint venture company. Nowadays it's operating already in whole Scandinavia, but it's having roughly 500 megawatts capacity. It's a joint venture. On fuel side, we are concentrating on the biofuels, which we are generating from the waste materials, and the heat side, our solutions are geothermal. So that's what we are doing. But to be able to do these kind of things and develop something new, put a lot of effort and money to research and development, you have to be successful in your main business, and that's why we are also developing the oil side quite heavily. But its role is quite clear that there we try to make the cash flow to be able to make the world a little bit better place. But now I will jump to the item what I really would like to talk to you. It's necessity of understanding the global energy system, and that is something what in my job I do see that quite often quite clever, much clever people than I am are missing, because on their own work they don't see that how the global energy system really works. They start to analyze the energy system in one individual area like Scandinavia or Europe, but to be able to make right choices and right policy, you have to understand the global system, how the whole global energy system works. And that is quite difficult and challenging. I have used 10-15 years to understand it, and it's very difficult still for me to put it in the way that I can explain that to somebody who is coming outside of the industry. But these are the main drivers. The slide is quite small. This is one slide what I would like to show you, that this is the fundamental fact what we cannot get out of energy consumption. Primary energy consumption is very linked to two other trends what we do have on this planet. Other one is growth of population, and other one is growth of GDP. As you can see from the, maybe you can see from the graphs that the GDP has been studied a little bit even more than consumption of the energy. That is mainly because mankind has come a little bit more clever. Our wealthiness does not only based on the consumption of the energy like it was in the past. But what we haven't found any solution is the growth of population. The growth of population will go very, very well line in line with consumption of the energy. And that leads to the really difficult task that simultaneous, while we have to cut down the CO2 emissions globally, our population is growing very fast. And quite often we don't understand how big figures we are talking about. While population in next 20 years is going to grow close to 2 billion people, it's a huge amount. And those people, just to survive, stay alive, they need a lot of energy, and energy has to be produced one way or another. Population growth is the biggest challenge. I'm talking a little bit later on what can be done on that matter, but I just want to show you as a slide as well that how is it happening on different regions. We quite often, when we look at the energy system, all other matters in our daily life, we look at, of course, as a normal human beings, what's happening in our own society. What's happening in Sweden, what's happening in Nordics, what's happening in EU. But when we talk about the growth of population, it doesn't really happen here. We don't see that with our own eyes. it happens totally elsewhere. It happens on conditions which we have a very difficult to imagine that how can even anybody have a children in an environment like that. Africa is maybe the saddest example out of it. Then we do have in our energy system a couple of bottlenecks. Quite often we will hear by professors and technical people and some business people saying that we do have all the solutions, we do have all the technologies, now we just have to put it into practice. That is not true. We don't have all the solutions. It does not mean that you should be pessimistic. I'm extremely optimistic. I would like to put more money to the R&D. I would like to solve the problems. But by saying that we do have solutions means that quite many people doesn't anymore bother to do anything. And we don't have enough attention to the matter. And that's why we shouldn't say that. We have a couple of big bottlenecks in global energy system. One is storing electricity. Another one is something what you haven't heard too many times. It's the crude distillation curve. I'm going to touch shortly both of those. As a refinery, I'm not a refinery man, I'm just a simple oil trader, but I have deal with the refineries enough, and this picture is good enough for me. So you are getting from the crude distillation tower different type of products. And if you really would like to cut CO2 emissions, it's not good enough that we cut down diesel consumption or gasoline consumption. We should cut down crude oil demand. And as long as we would like to have a flight to Pattaya or Gran Canaria, and we would like to drive with the cars where we have a horsepowers like today, we don't really look at with our eyes to the problem. The problem is that simultaneously, for example, Jet A consumption and petrochemical demand cannot grow 50% and gasoline consumption go down 50%. We don't know the technology to handle such a kind of situation. So according to well, we can only trust on the statistic and forecast, but if we look at the aircraft fuel consumption forecasts, nowadays today we roughly use a little bit less than 300 million tons of Jet A1 fuel. That growth is now the fastest ever. And if you look at around of you, everybody is building new airplane terminals and airports are expanding, and the people would like to travel more and more. If we do all that, only certain part of the fossil molecules will work actually in aircrafts which is flying in 10 kilometers high. So it means that we have to use more crude oil to get those molecules, to keep those new aircrafts flying, taking us from one place to another. Simultaneously, we are saying that okay, we substitute gasoline and diesel on the personal vehicles. So then the question is that where these molecules will end up. They don't disappear. I'm going to touch that later on. If we then look at the storing electricity, some people are telling you that the batteries are solution. Now there is, in this example, we have used Swedish figures, but we had this spring competition between different battery providers, leading battery providers around the world, including Tesla. It was asked specially that I should mention Tesla, so I did that. Their offers to build up the battery for windmill farm, I think the winning, I don't tell who won the competition, but winning level was 1,000 euro per kilowatt hour. Now Elon Musk is telling that the price is going down to the 100, so 10% of the price what they were offering today. But let's assume that he's right. Still the number what we are seeing to be able to store electricity seasonal like it should be, if we think that electricity today is feasible and solution for all our problems, it's enormous cost. So if we look at the Swedish consumption, I don't know for sure from top of my head, I have to look at here Finnish figures I know from top of my head, but if the Swedish consumption is 135 terawatt hours per year, and 1% of that, 1% of the Swedish consumption, you would like to move from summer to winter. The cost of that kind of battery, based on the offers what we got, were 1,350 billion euros. So even if Elon Musk is right and you take only 10% out of it, it's still many times price of nuclear. You could get 20 nuclear power plants with that money. So we are not, when we start to look at scrap a little bit these stories and we start to look at the numbers, we can easily see that there is a lot of unsolved problems. This graph is, I very seldom use this many slides, but because I want to also show, you can hopefully have this presentation later on, you can see where the information is coming from, mainly from IEA outlook, energy outlook. There you can see that what should be done to be able to meet the Paris contract and be on that 2-degree path if we would like to, or if we would like to get that path, how much we have to take CO2 down, and what does that mean in electricity production and globally. Maybe it's too small figures there, but I can tell you that in 20 years' time, for example, nuclear power, you have to increase the terawatt hours what you are getting from nuclear from 3,000 terawatt hours up to 6,000 terawatt hours. So it means that in 20 years' time we have to double the nuclear power capacity of this planet. I'm asking those politicians and civil engineers in Brussels that who is going to pay those plants, who is going to finance them, who are going to permit them, where they are going to build, and no answers. How can you then put this kind of scenario to the people and say that we can handle the matter? We don't. We can't. Same thing with hydropower. Exactly same thing. We should double the hydropower in 20 years' time to be able to meet the Paris scenario. How many rivers you have in Sweden which are not yet built? These are pretty serious questions and should be addressed correctly, and I think they are not. Okay, now I have told all about the problems. There are many others. I don't have time to touch all of them, but you are happy to look at the presentation and see that where the information is coming from. These are not ST1 figures. These are made by, hopefully, the best guys in this planet, but don't know. I'm going to the solutions. What should be then done? And I'm still very optimistic that we can find all the solutions what has to be found to be able to make the world a better place, to leave this planet in better shape to our children. But we have to be honest and look at the present situation honest way and start to do right things. We don't have enough money and resources to do wrong things. Because every time when you change something in energy system, we are talking about billions and billions and hundreds of billions. So it's better to do right. And for that reason, we have to model, and I think this is UN type of work, we have to model the energy system in a way that we can analyze every and each proposed action. Does it really cut CO2 and how much it will cost? And in different continents, in different countries, solutions and cost can be different, but we still have to look at that, where we should money first and what should be done first, and what is the best path to get CO2 in atmosphere down. R&D is the key thing. We have to push everybody who has talent to do enough R&D that we will find solution. I'm 100% sure that we will find solution. I'm not 100% sure do we find them in 20 years' time. If you remember the Apollo 13 trip, that's the movie out of it as well. That's why I remember it. Once they had a message from the space that Houston, we have a problem. And they were basically in position that they didn't have a clue how they are getting the astronauts back to the Earth in life. And they have a certain amount of tools and a lot of engineering work. And they push the gun to the head of the engineer, and now you really have to solve the problem. And I think we haven't even taken the gun, and we definitely haven't put it to any engineer's head to say that let's start to solve this problem. We try to do everything in a way that we don't have to change our lifestyle, we don't have to do anything which is unpleasant, we just keep going like business as usual. And that is R&D and the role of the university, role of the scientist. It's very important. But now they don't have enough money, and therefore we have to put mandate for the fossil energy companies that they are participating to this game. An easiest way to do is that we will just put the mandate for the energy company that they have to cut down the energy consumption where they have a fossil element in. And it can be a couple of percent per year or 1% per year. But if they really have to cut down, then they are starting to think how can they still be in the business. I'm talking about this reforest item as a last example, if I have a time. But one thing what I would like to say to you, because it's coming to every one of us, our own habits and our own lifestyle. A couple of years ago, I proposed in Brussels, it was one of those EU meetings, that why we are regulating emissions of the cars. Actually, we have invented those measures to calculate it, and there is a lot of manipulation, and it doesn't really help. So why don't we regulate the size of the car? And then the guys look at me that, what do you mean? I mean that, let's say that we only produce those kind of cars that you can't drive faster than speed limits on the road. Means that in Finland, for example, the maximum speed limit is 120 kilometers per hour. So if you are only producing that kind of cars, you have a 50% less material, 50% less consumption, quite a less accidents, quite a less local emissions. All things would be, what would be consequences would be quite nice and positive. But on the other side of the coin is, of course, that guys like me cannot anymore push the gas and feel how it goes from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 5 seconds. And of course, nobody would buy Audi car with 50,000 euro if the maximum speed is 120. But these are the issues what we should talk about. Other example is that while we are flying, why people are flying from Frankfurt to München or from Paris to Brussels, there is a very good rail connection available, actually can be even faster. I proposed to those guys that it's very simple decision what you can do. Just give instructions to the airport that they are not giving permission to take off if the landing airport is less than hour distance and there is a train connection there. Oh, but Mika, we cannot do that. The people wouldn't like that. They are used to fly. And examples like that, we have many of them. And as long as we can't even put those into practice, I don't believe that we are honest with climate change challenge at all. We just want to continue and hope that somebody would solve the problem in a way that we can keep going with our lifestyle. And the last in examples what should be done is that's always has been my most important argument to say, and definitely something what should be done, but I don't have any idea how to get it done, is to improve females and girls' position in developing countries. It's definitely solving the climate change issue or improving the climate change battle, but it has so many other positive impacts to the society. They don't have to go as far as we have done here in Finland and Sweden, but anyway, that's a huge potential and should be definitely done. We do very little about it, and there are concrete things what can be done. The Bangladesh minor loans is very good example. There are a couple of good examples, but we still do very little. And I guess the religions, we are afraid of religions. That's why we don't touch the issue. But the population growth is anyway the primary problem if we look at the climate change solutions. If we have a solution one area, if the population will grow like it today, very difficult to do everything in timeline what the scientist has given to us. Last thing before I will stop, I will show one example what we are now trying to do. People are laughing to me because this sounds so crazy, but I'm very happy to be clown on the matter. We tried to build up an agro-forest concept into Sahara in Africa. What we are doing, we are not doing that yet. It's in a calculation mode right now. We are trying to find the best brain for each and every yield of this process from different parts of not Europe but the world. For example, Israelis, they are best when it comes to agro in the desert. They have very good experience out of it. But what we are trying to do is that we will build up solar panel electricity production plant somewhere in Sahara, and with that electricity we'll clean up seawater. With that water we will start to desalinate the land and grow forest and food type of products, agro products for the local society. And by doing that, we don't use any fossil energy. We will take the energy from the sun, and with the trees, especially trees, we will take CO2 from atmosphere straight to the earth. And not too many people know about it, but even eucalyptus tree, the CO2 what the tree can take from the atmosphere, 1/3 of it will go straight to the earth. So then we have finalized the circle. The mankind has taken coal from the land, use it, burn it, CO2 has gone to the air, but by trees we will take it back to the earth. And that is natural way to take it back to the earth. We call that biological CCS. And But here, believe me or not, the climate change or climate CO2 is not even the most important thing. I think the politicians are going to be much more fascinated about it, that if we are getting this done, we can provide some kind of hope and a future for those people who are living in miserable conditions around Sahara area, that they can have a food and a way of living in their own country. If we don't find solution for that, I think it's also big time our problem. And it's a good example where you, by innovative thinking, can actually solve many problems simultaneously. And I'm very optimistic, and one day we are somewhere in Sahara producing electricity with solar power, using that electricity to clean up the water, and with that water we are harvesting or farming forestry and the food for local people. And that kind of plantation will provide jobs as well. They need jobs. Young men in Northern Africa are missing jobs and missing some kind of hope for the future. Have I gone already? I have used your time maybe too much, so maybe it's my job to stop here. But I think it's very important to say to you that I would like to say to you that by no means situation is hopeless. We just have to start to work, and to be able to work in the right direction, we have to start to accept scientists, physics and chemistry truths. We cannot anymore make policy out of it and make political points out of this. This is by far too serious problem. We have to really start to work. I think everything is possible. These problems can be found. We as a company are a very small contributor, but we try our best every day to make the world a better place, and I hope as many of you as possible will follow us. Together we can make it work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mika. And I have a proposal to you. Maybe you can come back here, because in 2 years from now we will be here again, and be here again in the panel, and then we also invite Elon Musk to come here. That could be something, right?
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, okay, that's a deal then.
If he is still in the business.
Yeah, perfect. I hope you all read this article, I think it was in February, where Mika stated that Tesla will go bankruptcy within a short period of time then.
No, I didn't say that. Actually, I didn't say that it will.
That was the headline at least.
Yeah, of course, reporters are writing what they are writing. I just said that it's difficult for them because everybody is making losses out of the electricity cars, and other car manufacturers, they are doing also other cars. So in that kind of environment, if you are only doing those cars which are making losses, I think he has a lot of challenges ahead of us. Audi electricity cars, WBM electricity cars, Mercedes electricity cars, they are not that bad.
Mika, thank you very much. And now a big welcome for Kimmo Rakamo. He's CEO of Scangas since May this year. Big hand for Kimmo.
Thank you, Carl, and thank you for the organizers for inviting me to this event this afternoon. I am, as said, I'm Kimmo Rakamo. I'm a relatively new CEO of Scangas, and I just started a couple of months ago. And and I'm learning every day. So if I'm not having quick answers to all questions, so please forgive me. I'm of course very excited about this, my new challenge, and I'm also very excited to be speaking on a church. That's my first time. Last time I was on the altar, I got married, so that was one thing that I certainly do remember. Just before I forget, just to make sure that if you haven't already visited our new ship Coralius here at Donsö, please do so. It's probably one of the nicest ships that you have seen. We, Scangas, we are a very simple company. We are concentrating on one product, namely LNG, liquefied natural gas, and that's what I'm going to share with you. Couple of words about LNG and its possibilities, especially in the marine use that there is. To start, I think the most important thing here is that that LNG is the cleanest available marine fuel that there is. And there are a couple of comparisons that we have here on the slide, but I want to take another example. I talked with Viking Line yesterday, and they have this Viking craze going back between Finland and Sweden, and that ship alone reduces carbon dioxide CO2 emissions more than 3,000 to 4,000 cars on an annual basis. And that's just one ship. And think of the opportunities and the potential that there is if we think of the worldwide shipping. So there is the numbers which are actually very hard to believe that moving from 3% sulfur bunker fuel to LNG reduces sulfur oxide gases more as much as 50 million diesel burning cars. Those are hard things to understand, but again, this is a very important thing for the environment. So if we focus on LNG and its possibilities, practically all sulfur oxides will be gone when converting into LNG. NOxes are reduced by 85 to 90%. CO2 reduction is about approximately 25%, and no particles. And of course, if you visit the ship now, it's clean as it's new. But if you visit an LNG ship that has been in use for several years, the engine room stays clean, much cleaner than with alternative fuels. One concern that people might have is that is LNG available, and yes, it is. We, Scangas and many of our competitors have been building an extensive LNG network around Europe, most importantly in the Baltic Sea region, where there are lots of terminals, there are lots of supply points, and more competition is emerging. So I think that it's good news for everybody. Of course, competition is good news for us as well, because we realize that customers having a single supplier are reluctant in moving in such a product, and we are very happy to see that other guys are also in this business. Another thing which is very important is that LNG-powered ships, they are not experimental technology. Technology is very sound. It's available from different vendors. My colleague from Nauticor had a presentation in the arena earlier today, and he well pointed out that the LNG having a dual fuel ship is actually a very good insurance for the future, because you are not dependent on oil, you are not dependent on gas, whatever happens in the future. And these approximately 1/2 of the ships that are currently being built on LNG, they are dual fuel, and which is again a very good insurance. We have some of our customers, they have single fuel LNG, only LNG, and of course it sets very high requirements for supplying them, that because there is no option. So if LNG is not available, the ships are not moving, and of course that is not acceptable. Natural gas, Mika had nice statistics of what is happening on the worldwide basis, so I'm going to bore you with one more statistics, and just stating it very shortly, it's that gas worldwide is available in vast quantities. Existing gas reserves, they meet the current gas demand for the next 50 years. And it doesn't mean that after 50 years the gas reserves have all been used, but new reserves will be found, as has been the case during past few years. So what this means in practice is that it is likely that the gas and LNG prices would be more stable than the oil prices, as we all know that the oil prices are the first to react to whatever happens in the world, whereas gas market has traditionally been more stable and most likely will continue to be so. We have invested heavily in our LNG infrastructure, and of course this is somewhat of have been a risky take, as once we started building these, we were not confident that if the market will be there. Of course, we had a view that the market would be existing, but there were no guarantees on that. And today we have this network in Norway, Sweden, and Finland, which can handle at least 2 times the volume that we are currently delivering. The good news is that we see the market growing as we speak. The bad news for us is that the oil price has been much cheaper than anybody expected some years ago, and now of course it's very hard to predict where the oil price is going. Well, it's easy to predict, but very hard to be right. But the point really is that whatever happens in the oil price will have an impact on the market growth on LNG. We currently have a liquefaction capacity in Norway about 300,000 tons, which currently we are supplying some 400,000 tons. So one quarter of our sales are sourced from other sources. And then we have a terminal network as described. I'm not going to go through all these, but it's let's say the latest addition will be the Tornio terminal, where we are a partner owner. That's up north on the Finnish-Swedish border, and that terminal will be completed. Well, actually, it's already mechanically completed, but the commercial operation will start next year. And on our shipping side, we currently are running this one ship with Antoni Veder, Coral Energy. The second one, which is here on display, as mentioned, it's a joint venture company between Sirius and Antoni Veder. We are very proud of that setup and the ship itself. And then later this year we'll be receiving a third vessel, Coral Energize. As the name suggests, it's a ice-classed Super 1A ice-classed vessel, which is of course very good in supplying the terminal in Tornio up north. These are a couple of nice pictures from the naming ceremony of Coralius, and surprise, surprise, the name was Coralius. There are a couple of things, and what we are planning to do with Coralius is the ship-to-ship operations, and there is one example on left that we performed one ship-to-ship in a very safe manner. That was on the top left-hand corner. That's our vessel Coral Energy and bunkering a vessel on the open sea. And there were no problems with the safety or anything else. Operationally, it went very well, and we believe that ship-to-ship operations with LNG will be as straightforward as with conventional fuels. What the future will hold, of course, that's a great question, and what we believe that these global sulfur requirements set for 1st January 2020 will increase the LNG demand on a worldwide basis. Practically, there are 3 options for ship owners: either to install scrubbers, which of course take care of the sulfur. They don't take care of the NOx emissions. But the other one is to use gas oil, which is of course doable as long as the oil prices are staying at moderate level, or start using LNG. And I believe that the outcome will be a combination of these 3 things, but then of course we believe that the LNG market will continue to grow regardless, especially in this area where the emission standards are much more stringent than on a worldwide basis. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention, and we'll be continuing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimmo. And I heard some rumors on the island that Coralius is your new second home. Is that correct? Where did you spend your night? I think you should share that with us.
Indeed, I did stay on the Coralius last night, and that was probably the best accommodation I've ever had. Some people say that I was saving company money, but if you think of the price of the ship, it was probably the most expensive night I've ever spent.
Yeah, quite debatable. Thank you, Kimmo. And now, time on stage for Anders Malm, who is the Executive Vice President for the Supply and Trading Division within Preem. And that's something you've been done since 2015. Welcome, Anders.
Thank you very much. So, how do we take this on with so much knowledge said about global challenges and possibilities, I guess? But I will try to describe this from a Preem point of view, where Preem and the vision and how we are going to take this into the most important market that we see, and that is the future. Of course, we share all the challenges, globally, of course, but also that we are a big player in this area and we need to address those questions. And I will try to do that from 2 perspectives, both from the customer perspective, but also from our part of a supply and production chain, where many of you are a big part to help us improve. So I will try to take you through our view of the future, aiming at 2030. First of all, Preem. Many of you know Preem. We're a quite big player here in the Nordics, and what we want to say with this picture is, with some substance of our company, it also comes a responsibility to try to do something. And even if we don't have the solutions for all the global questions, of course, but we can do a difference, and we need to do that in cooperation with people who know better, with the research and development and so on. And that's what we're trying to hook up to do this together and taking this further and make it a little bit better here into the future. And of course, we are in this business today. Please visit our colleagues down in the exhibition area. We're trying to do the best to support our customers. You're here to try to get your part of the business a little bit easier. But now I will start a little bit with what we want back from you to help us being better. First of all, as a fuel company, we have a quite ambitious vision, and this has been set for 10 years ago. But the journey started even earlier than that, back in the 80s, when we started to do environmentally adapted fuels, taking away the lead, for example, in the gasoline, blending in RME, ethanol, and also now coming up with the evolution range series of fuels. But the double responsibility we have is, of course, to support the market and US customers with the cleanest fuels possible, where we can add a value, but also doing this as the most environmentally friendly way as possible. Even if there are global challenges, we can't do everything up here in the Nordic, but we can do a difference. And that's important to remember. There's a lot of people here that can make a lot of difference in this path. So, the future market is based on the strategic plan that we have in Preem, looking against 2030. And what we see is we're providing environmentally adapted fuel for our customers in this region. And the main region where we are is in Northwest Europe. To combine this, we have the three strategic areas where we try to focus on to make this happen. We have a growth of renewable fuels that are mainly due to road transportation. And here we have a quite ambitious goal to have 3 million cubic meters of renewable fuels as part of the solution in the world, not all the solution. And this is quite ambitious. To do this, as Mika also said, we need to earn money to invest in this, of course, and have a healthy business, because this takes a lot of investments to do this, and to do this change, of course. And the last strategic goal we have is to be the most innovative fuel company, that we're trying to embrace to find new solutions with partners that can help us being better. If you're looking a little bit about the customer segment, and Mika was mentioning that as well, if you're looking globally, this picture is a little bit different. So this is more about the Europe picture. But the three segments that we see is growing coming up to 2030 is, of course, commercial road transportation, heavy trucks on roads. We're having aviation, and also the business that you're representing here, marine. That are the three main drivers that also are linked to GDP, or will to travel, to have a better way to live and have a better daily business, so to speak. But we also see a pattern where we're having construction that are quite flat. Even if we're building a lot of things are quite flat there. When we're coming to personal cars, the trend is going downwards, and there are better solutions than using the type of fuels that we're having to transport people. We can do it in smaller cars, as you were mentioning, Mika, but there are better ways to use the fuels than doing it on the personal cars. But also industrial and home heating is, of course, going downwards quite rapidly. And we see this as positive, because when we're looking at the commercial road transportation, aviation or marine, it's harder to make finding sustainable solutions to transport today. There will be solutions coming up, of course, but this is the way we see it. And Preem, as a way of this, of course, in the end customer market that we are mostly has been in Sweden. We are selling in the whole Northwest Europe, of course, but now also expanding our business where we can make a difference in those segments. For example, Norway, where we entered a year ago, and where we're predicting to have a market share in the diesel bulk business for approximately 10% in the next 12 months. But that's one way of, or a view in the future as well, to take the products and there's the customer solutions into new markets. So if we're looking into the product portfolio, and what we're trying to do here is, of course, as Mika was saying as well, the distillation tower is taking out a couple of products here. And we're mainly in the liquid environmentally adapted fuel business. So we're not in the gas business. We're getting LPG and so on, of course, out of the refineries. But mainly we're trying today do low sulfur fuel, ultra low sulfur fuel, and renewable fuel. So that's the product market where we see we want to grow and hand solutions for the customers that we're seeing in the market side. And to do this, it's you need to invest quite heavily, both in our production units we're having today. We're having all the infrastructure here, of course. So if we're starting with the renewable fuels, where we need to times 17 the next 12 and a half years in the production, it's quite an ambitious plan. And to do that, we're, for example, now investing some 650 million crowns in Gothenburg for a hydrogen production unit. That's the first step of being able to produce renewable fuels. But also then, if we're looking in forward, going to 2030, finding the right feedstock and investing in the production or pre-treatment facilities, you're talking about XX billion Swedish crowns to get us there. And this is a plan that we're trying to put in place now. We don't have all the solutions. We need to have strong partnerships here as well to take us there. But that's one of the areas that we are investing in. But also, as was said here before, the fossil business will still be here, globally, of course, and even in Europe. It's a lot to talk about renewables. It's growing fast in Europe. But fossil business will also be here, and what we're trying to do here is taking away as much sulfur as possible from this and doing it as environmental adapted as possible. So, for example, what we're looking here, we're having now a big investment up in Lysekil, a vacant distillation unit for 1.6 billion, taking on stream later next year. But also we have now put in an environmental permit for the residue hydrocracker in Lysekil, and that's some 15 billion investment. They're taking away the sulfur and also the fuel oil, which a lot of the fuels that you're using today in the marine segment. But both those things are mostly linked to us producing environmentally friendly fuels. But as important is to have an environmentally friendly, as friendly as can be, supply and production chain. Because if we can't solve that as well, the fuel that we are producing will not be that environmentally friendly. And there's quite a lot of volumes we're talking about. In the supply chain that we're having within Preem, we're talking about 1,000 kilos per second. So if we're moving, you can see a pallet with 1,000 packages of milk that are moving always somewhere in the world, or Northwest Europe, or to the gasoline stations. So it's a quite of a challenge to try to improve this as well, because this is also having quite a large environmental impact. And this is where you have part of this knowledge to help us being better with. Could be LNG-driven boats, it could be the innovation and so on. And just to share some development that we have been done in Preem since 2008. So we have reduced with the refining and the depot 18% in the CO2 due to doing it more efficiently, trying to save energy, not consume it in the beginning, but also within shipping, where we have decreased quite a lot with 49% in shipping and trucking, I should say. And this is one important thing as well, that we need to hook up with great partners to help us solve this, because we are not the experts in the supply business. You can the shipping business and the solutions that we need to know about to get our vision into the future. And what we're trying to do is, of course, to hand over the end customer fuel with the Preem Evolution fuels that have saved some 1.3 million tons of CO2 so far. But this is important steps to have everything linked. We are not the solution globally, of course, but we can make a difference, and we want to make the difference with you. And our expectation on partners to help us doing this is, of course, contributing to our business, helping us being better in doing this. This is something I think Donsö has been really good at, helping us serving solutions. If we're doing it like this, you can save CO2, or you can save money, or we can do things better. And also to have the tight cooperation with professional partners to succeed long term. We're not here for the 100-meter race, we're here for the marathon, and we're going to be here in this business for a long, long time. But we need to have a strong partnership to help us get there. We don't have all the solutions, of course. And you should never forget either that continuous improvements to every day be a little bit better tomorrow than you were yesterday. That's also an important step. And for example, those savings here is not a single thing that's saying that, so this was the thing that saved us 18% in the refinery. LNG is helping part of it. Energy efficiency helping part of it, of course. But this is important things for us. So try to summarize that. So the future is our most important market, of course. It's challenging. We heard both Mika and Kimmo talking about the challenges here. Prima positive around this. We are up for the task. We have a plan. We don't have all the solutions. We need your help to doing that as well. And doing that with innovation, investment, and partnership is strong beliefs that we think is the right path forward here. And to getting the 3 million cubic meter of renewables, finding the right feedstock for this, to earning money and being the most innovative company, we can't do all of this alone. So we want strong partners to join us on this journey into the future. You can't avoid it. The future is coming, and it's not going to get slower either. Just picking up speed now. Thank you.
Thank you, Anders, and thank you also, Kim and Mikko. Any instant reactions to what you said? Anyone want to start? Yeah, Kimmo?
I would like to compliment the Anders and Mika, and their views of the future were very good. But on Mika's point that if we really want to change something, we really have to change the style we are living, and of course nobody wants to do that. But that's the inconvenient side of the things that we probably can't afford to buy cheap things made in China in the future, or travel to places that our parents couldn't afford to travel, or so on. The rules may have changed, or they may change in the future.
We all can sleep in a chippy at Donsö Island. That's a perfect solution, maybe. One question. We have the global energy system. You spoke about that, Mika. And also we are agreed that things are changing very fast now. How do you think about long-term investments? I mean, as you said, Mika, we are speaking about huge amount of monies. And we don't know what will happen. How do you make your decision when you invest? That's a question for you all.
It's hard, but I think it's not going to be easy if you don't start. And as I was saying there as well, so today we're investing some 10 million Swedish crowns a day. We need to invest much, much more to solve this picture that I was just drawing up. And I think it's important to start and don't see the hinder or the struggle with this. So you need to do something, and I think you won't do everything right, but you need to start. And when we're facing those challenges, because the nice thing with challenges is when everybody else needs to change, it's good. But when it's coming to yourself, it's not that easy. But to do that, you need to challenge yourself as well. So just start, I would say.
Yeah, I would say that we will do different type of investments. We do those kind of investment that we make ourselves in the business that we are capable to survive as a company. And those investments we will analyze carefully against the market and try to do as much possible money out of those investments. But then what comes to the renewable energy, we are making those kind of investments nobody else do, because we can. I have always that kind of thinking behind that we look at the size of investment, and even if it goes that badly wrong that tomorrow we have to write it off, we can do that. We have a couple of projects like that. We are drilling holes in Otaniemi. It's a campus, university campus area next to Helsinki, and our other hole is now in deep 4.9 kilometers, and that other hole is in 3 kilometers. And the idea is to go with the first hole that deep and turn the hole like that and pump water in and put water into the fractions and then catch the water which is then over 100 degrees hot to the other hole and take it back to the up and then connect it to the with heat exchangers to the central heating system of city of Espoo. If we are making that work, heating business will change dramatically in Nordics. But when we look at that, it's quite a lot of money what we are putting into it.
I can understand that, yeah.
Tens of millions of euros. And Fortum type of company, when we look at that together, they said that they can not afford to do such a kind of project because there is not guaranteed return. Stock listed companies will never solve your problems.
Anders?
Yeah, but I also think for me as well, I think investment is also investing in a relationship, for example, to find new solutions with other businesses that have done things greater than we have made in this business, and to invest in relationships like this, to trying to find new colleagues to do things differently with, is also quite an important thing that will make a big change in the future. You can't stand in your own little box and trying to solve the problem. You need to open up. And open up could be a bit tricky, of course, because you want information, but giving it away can be a little bit more tricky. But when you start doing that and see that 1 + 1 is not just 2, it's 3 or 4 even. And that's one way to invest as well, in relation and in time.
Kimmo, how do you discuss internally when it comes to long-term investment?
Yeah, I think the challenge with investments in these areas, in refining or in gas distribution or whatever we've been talking about this afternoon, is that they are very long-term investments. And once you make a long-term investments for next 20 or 30 years, you really have to have a view of the future. The traditional way in companies, at least in stock-listed companies, is that you put numbers in an Excel sheet and then you come up with some kind of a return on the lower right-hand corner, and that's either adequate or inadequate. And if it's good, then we proceed with the investment. But the problem is that nobody can predict how the world will look like in next 20 to 30 years. And that's the challenge, and then some kind of a view of the future is required. Nobody can tell if Mika's holes in the ground will be a good business, but he has a view, and equally what we are doing or Preem is doing, we don't know if there will be demand for our products, but we both I believe Preem has a view and we have a view as well.
Yeah, Anders mentioned the subject about his expectation on the shipping industry. Kimmo, Mika, what's your expectation on the shipping industry in their capacity as a supplier?
Why don't you start?
Okay. Shipping industry, it's in a very interesting situation. We do see that there are a lot of new or big changes coming actually in shipping industry, but it has big impact to the oil refining business as well. So if the IMO specification will materialize, look like it's going to happen, it's definitely have big impact to the whole global energy system. It's actually a good example where we can analyze that what will happen to the different kind of flows when this IMO spec will come valid. I do see that the need for shipping is growing all the time, and it does make a lot of sense. Transportation should be done in a way that it will consume as little as possible energy, and LNG as an alternative is very, very good one, because we don't have too many other consumption points where we can economically wisely use LNG. That is, you have to build a lot of infrastructure. For example, if you would like to start to use LNG in personal cars, it will cost huge amount of money. So I think shipping is going to grow, and the raw materials unfortunately will stay fossil. I don't see that we have non-fossil solutions coming, at least in short future. We have to remember that the gas is still fossil. It's less CO2, it's more environmental friendly, but from climate change point of view, it's still fossil fuel. It's better than many others, but we cannot be happy with that as long as we will find also for shipping side renewable solution, but I don't have an idea what that could be.
Kimmo?
Yeah, I would agree with Mika 100% regarding his assessment on the oil markets and also competitiveness of LNG. What I'm a little bit struggling, and I'd say you're putting us to a little bit an unfair position as we are having this chairs full of shipping experts, and to ask how do we see a shipping market to develop. But I think that in all honesty, if we think that the world economy continues to grow, so will the shipping market worldwide. I think that's quite obvious.
Yeah. Mika mentioned that you are optimistic about the future, although your presentation had some pessimistic elements. So would you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah,
are you optimistic or
not? Well, what I would like to say, and I'm extremely optimistic, because I think all the problems can be solved. But to be able to solve the problem, you have to identify it correctly, and you have to be honest with the starting point. If you are not honest with the facts, if you don't honest mathematics, if you have secondary truths, if you don't respect the rules of physics, if you don't respect the rules of chemistry, but you are just having hype stories that how we are moving in some kind of hole underground from one city to another, 1,000 kilometers per hour, and we are next month we are having some kind of space shuttle into the Mars. So we can of course listen to those kind of fancy stories, but they are not delivering results. I'm optimistic immediately when we start to talk about the honest way the system, and then we can also find solutions. The mission, what we do have ahead of us, the climate change challenge, it's not it's a small challenge, it's a huge challenge. But humankind can solve it out. It cannot be only solved by technical solutions. I tried to describe in my presentation role of individual of us, all of us, that we have to change our lifestyle as well. That's the part of the solution. And maybe we should start from there. Maybe we should request from our politicians that we only accept the car's maximum speed 120 kilometers per hour. We don't want to fly anymore 1 hour flights. That's in our hands. We can deliver it immediately. Why don't we do that?
Anders, Kimmo, why don't we do that?
Why don't we?
You can start.
Yeah, of course, it's very difficult for us all to change it. We don't want to change voluntarily. I think, as Mika also hinted, that the politicians need to make the decisions, but the simplest decisions are actually quite simple.
Yeah. And speaking about politicians, how do you see their role? How do they cope with this climate, what we have ahead of us?
So for a start, I think they're struggling and trying. I think the Paris Agreement is a big start getting forward. But as Mika was saying as well, it's not a simple task to make this happen, and it needs to be much faster, much strong, and it will have impact on our daily living, of course. But the problem that politicians having is, of course, that if you're threatening the voters too much, you won't be there for 4 years. So I think it's important as well to see that challenge, and for us as an industry or oil industry or shipping industry to try to find the solutions as well as part of it. And as well as Mika was saying, the law of physics when it comes to renewable and so on, the law of physics, what needs to be transported the next 10 years won't change dramatically. But we can help doing that, and the logistic industry worldwide, there are not too many people that can make a big difference of making wiser decisions going forward. And that's one way to start helping the politicians getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Anders is perfectly right on the matter that every action will be counted, and most important thing is that people realize that it does matter. I very often, when I'm getting frustrated, I say, that doesn't really matter. Come on, why are you talking about this? That doesn't really matter. My children, they taught me that, Daddy, hey, come on. Everything matters. So somebody can do bigger things, somebody can do smaller things, but everything matters. And what is the most important thing why we shouldn't say, or somebody like myself shouldn't say that doesn't really matter, is that the awareness has to be built to be able to make political decisions. Everybody has to understand that this is really the issue, what has to be solved. And without own actions, even if they are that small, awareness does not build up like it should be.
Everything matters. That's a good one, yeah. Anders, Kimmo? Any?
Yeah, well, I don't personally have very high faith on politicians, to be honest, and they disregard the expertise. They don't have the expertise themselves, and they are very keen on putting some sort of incentives in place or taxes in place, but they fail to see the big picture, and they sometimes these incentives work just the opposite way that they intend to. So if there is any development in any issue, it's not because of the political decision making, but despite of that.
Yeah. And I can also add to that, because we're always requesting for longer terms with how it's going to be from a political point of view in 10 years. But I think we just need to face the fact we're not going to get that. And that is why the future is a bit more scary than than we want. It's the investment and the changes are going so much faster. So it could be that some decisions making is wrong. But I don't think, honestly, that we're going to get a 20 years plan for how to solve this from the political point of view.
Me either. Mika, yeah?
One thing what I wanted to say, when we are having one role as we are now in Sweden and in Scandinavia, if we look at the whole region, we are the most lucky people in this planet. No matter how you look at it, and we have free education, we have all tools available to provide solutions for the whole globe, and that is actually fantastic opportunity as well, and we should really look at that as an opportunity rather than any type of threat. It's fantastic that if you can solve the problem of the world, isn't that?
Yeah.
So I think it's you should get energy out of it and not build up the scare feeling about it. So it's actually something what you should put totally other way around, and we have so much to give to the rest of the world if we use our brain capacity correct. We shouldn't necessarily put that much effort to build up new video games or things like that, but put our children to do some other mathematics work, like solve these energy problems.
And I would say as well, the theme for today was entrepreneurship, and if everybody see that kind of problem coming up, there must be a solution out there, and try to use that to your favor as well.
Yeah, and maybe this is the right timing and the right place to say amen. So, yeah, I do that. Mika, Anders and Kimmo, on behalf of Donsö Shipping Meet, I would like to thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. It was a great honor to have you here. I think I would like that we give them a big hand.